everyone joined?
Good.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the webinar titled Filtration Principles and Technologies of Face Mask for Protection Against Coronavirus 2019, now known as COVID-19. My name is Tom Justice, and I will be the moderator for today's panel discussion. I've been involved in filtration for approximately 38 years and am representing the sponsor of this event, Waterloo Filtration Institute. WFI is dedicated to developing advanced filtration and separation solutions for a clean and sustainable world. The website can be found at wfinstitute.com. I'm personally involved in a number of trade associations and am currently president of the National Air Filtration Association, as well as being active in ASHRAE and the 13th World Filtration Congress, which is sponsored this year by the American Filtration and Separation Society. We have with us on the call today 8 industry experts who are responsible for most of the content that we will see here today. They are Dr. Christine Sun with Waterloo Filtration Institute, myself, Peter Tai, University of Tennessee, Chow Tan, University of Waterloo in Canada, Vincent Hugh, Advanced Filtration Center, TTRI in Taiwan, Eric Fu, PathEc, Australia, Dr. Gajanan Bhatt, University of Georgia, and Mr. Bob Burkhead, Blue Heaven Technologies in Louisville, Kentucky. We will try to limit this webcast as close to the original 45 minutes as possible. As of yesterday, we had approximately 75 people registered joining us from 3 continents, so we will not attempt to go live with questions. We do ask that you suppress any background noise where possible. Any equipment that you might see shown in the slides here does not necessarily represent an endorsement by any of the groups here today. So if you see here, map released by World Health Organization on January 30th of this year, the International Health Regulations Emergency Committee of the World Health Organization declared the outbreak a public health emergency of international concern. As of yesterday, 71,429 persons in 25 countries were infected and 1,725 deaths were reported according to the World Health Organization, who officially named the disease COVID-19, short for Coronavirus Disease 2019. Next slide. So there are already reports of face mask shortages around the world. According to McIntyre and Kugtai at the University of New South Wales, there is a concern that panic buying in countries where the risk of catching the virus is low and could result in a shortage of supplies which might not be available when we need them most. Particularly important that we supply our healthcare workers with the best protection possible as they're on the front lines, and between us and the epidemic. UNSW Duo also pointed out that during the SARS epidemic, 21% of all cases globally were healthcare workers. So what we're going to touch on today with the panelists, some of the key points: what type of face mask should I be wearing to protect me from coronavirus? What type of rating should I be looking for? Does it provide me with 100% protection, 95% protection, or what? How long can I use it? Can I reuse it? And so leading off the discussion, we have Dr. Christine Sun, president of WFI. Dr. Sun is a globally renowned expert and leader in the filtration industry with over 30 years experience in academia and industry. She is past chair of American Filtration and Separation Society and is currently operations chair of the 13th World Filtration Congress, which will be held April 20 through 24th of this year in San Diego, California. She received the AFS Fellow Award in 2019. So Dr. Sun, I will turn it over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this seminar. And recently we do receive a lot of questions related to face mask. And to answer the questions, we need to understand what is the basic behind face mask. Face mask is a filter. When we say a filter, You may think air filter in industrial dust removal, HVAC applications, transportation filters, such as engine intake or cabin air filters, or air purifiers you use at your home. Here we talk about a filter between your mouth, your nose, and the environment to prevent from potential contaminants into your body. There are two primary mechanisms for air filtration. One is called direct sieving, and the other is called indirect interception. For direct sieving, the particles are too large to pass through of the pores of filter medium be captured. The most common mechanism for filtration today in air filtration is indirect interception, which is contributed by Brownian diffusion, as you just see on the screen, for very small particles. And the other one called interception, that's for particles not too big, not too small, can flow through the airstream and be captured when it's touched fibers. And for the larger particles, when it's flow through the airstream, it's deviated from the airstream by its gravity or inertia and be captured when it's touched fiber. And the last one we call electric attraction or electric static charging attraction. For those very small particles be captured by electricity, either the charge on the fibers or the charge with the particles. What is filtration efficiency? Filtration efficiency is to measure how effectively a filter can capture contaminant particles. The first equation you can see on this slide is a simple expression of penetration, which is the ratio of downstream particle concentration to total upstream particle concentration. And the efficiency is 100 minus penetration percentage. Or efficiency is the complement of penetration. So what does it mean by N95 masks? Up to now, you probably think it have to relate it to filtration efficiency. If you are not sure what it exactly means, don't worry, you will know that shortly. The core technology in face masks today are based on 3 layers medium structure. The outer layer, as you can see on this slide, on the top, and the middle layer is a filtration layer, and the outside layer will be directly exposed to the environment. So this is a 3-layer structure. Normally, the outer layer is colored. And the key component in this structure is the middle layer. And this middle layer is mostly our melt-blown fabrics. That kind of melt-blown web is charged polypropylene electric nonwovens. On the right of this slide, you can see it's a typical structure of cross-section of this 3-layer structure. It's a SAM image. In the middle of that, you can find fine fiber melt-blown webs, which normally charged for face mask application. For people who are not familiar with the melt-blown process, this cartoon explains how it works. It is one step to make fabric from polymer resin. Polymer resin are added to extruder, heated up, and extruded to the spinning die. And the filaments extruded are instantly attenuated by hot velocity air to attenuated to micro scale fiber diameter, which forms the web directly on the belt by self-thermal adhesion. Polypropylene are the most popular used resin for melt-blown process, and electric charged polypropylene nonwovens are mostly widely used for face masks on the marketplace. Besides melt-blown technologies, you can find new developments primarily in nanofiber technologies and some other technologies such as membranes. And on this slide, you can see a commercial nanofiber face mask, and the fine middle layer of nanofibers catch submicron particles. And on the right are some research on nanofibers on filtration from Professor Tan's lab of University of Waterloo. But this will be not the focus of today's discussion, as melt-blown charged polypropylene are the dominant medium right now on the marketplace for the end users. So let's take a look at what kind of types we're talking about for the masks have the protection against the COVID-19. First, please aware, we are not talking about regular dust face mask. We're talking about the face masks have the protection against submicron particles. Primarily, there are 4 types: medical mask, N95 mask, APR, air purifying respirator, PAPR, powered air purifying respirator. You can see the actual product examples on this slide. And each category, they do require different filtration performance, or we can call it a protection level. For medical masks, they require bacterial filtration efficiency, minimum 95%, particular filtration efficiency minimum 95% at 0.1 micron. And the N95 masks, they require minimum 95% efficiency for 0.3 micron particles. And then so on, you can see APR required efficiency 95%, 99%, 99.97% for 0.3 micron particles. The same for powered air purifying respirators. We have standards to address different types of face masks we use. For medical masks, it needs to be cleared by FDA via 510K submission based on standard ASTM F2100. Realize that this is not a single test method. It including multiple test standards, such as particulate filtration efficiency, bacterial filtration efficiency, and blood penetration test. For N95 and APR, PAPR, for those products have to be certified by NIOSH under 42 CFR 84. Does the face mask really provide the efficiency when people wear that? In other words, we received a lot of questions. Is that really we can rely on face masks to prevent COVID-19? Professor Tan of University of Waterloo has done some very interesting work. Professor Tan is the Associate Dean of Engineering, University of Waterloo. He is also an Executive Director of Tsinghua University, University of Waterloo, Joint Research Center for Micro, Nano, Energy, Environmental Technologies. Next, he will share with us with his research to help you to answer your questions and understand what you can do more effectively to protect yourself from COVID-19.
Okay, thank you, Christine. To start with, just back a few years ago, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to work with a dust mask company, designing a new product. During the practice, we tested quite a few competitive available products in the market. You can see from the lab photo there. Next slide, please. So the idea was we purchased about 5 types of dust masks and put them on 3 different heads. The one you see on the top is a 3D printed a Chinese head shape based on some scientific database. And the figure, the lower part on the left, are the efficiencies for the filter media. Basically, you take a piece of the dust mask, the filter media, and put in the filter testing rather than dust mask fitting test. You can see from the left figure, the figure on the left shows that pretty much all the filter media are very effective except for one, which is the one, I wouldn't identify which one, but one of them is not very, working not very well, but most of them pretty high efficient. Then we test them by mounting, no, go back, please. Go back, please. Back, please. Yeah. Then we mount these dust masks on the head. It shows on the right, lower right, shows the real performance of the dust mask. You can see that their performances are really different. Without naming which one, some of them are pretty good as expected, but most of them are below 95% for 0.35 microns, as you can see there. Next slide. And we calculated their fitting factors. Actually, none of them meet the standard, which requires a fitting factor of 10 and above, but all of them are below 10 for all the particle sizes tested. Next, please. We also compared how they perform when they're mounted on different heads. As you can see that for the same types of dust mask, you mount on different heads, their performance actually are different. There's no indication of the color, but the shape matters most. Next. As one of the example, I want to show you how sealing affects the performance. We mount all of the, this is one of many test results. As a typical example to show you that without sealing the edges onto the mannequin face, the efficiency was very low, but when you seal it with duct tape, and you can see it bring up the efficiency to a pretty high level, although it's not 95% yet, but that matters a lot. That's pretty much the conclusion we can get. With this simple test, you can see that face mask is a filter. The filter media may work very well, but it really depends on how you wear it. Depend on the shape of your face or your head and how they are sealed onto the face. Thank you. That's all for me. Next. So the next will be Eric Fu from Australia. Anyway, so as you can see here, he's a co-founder of the PFAC Australia. I will pass it to Eric, please.
Thanks, Dr. Tan. Hello, everyone. The question for me to answer here is, according to Dr. Tan's research, the actual filtration efficiency when people wear is much lower than reported. What is your suggestion for the doctors who directly deal with COVID-19 patients or people in a highly infected area? Okay, to answer this question, let's have a quick look at the factors that may contribute to low protection. And they may include the mask is loosely fitted, the mask is too big for a given face, the profile of the mask in contact with the face is not following the contour of the face well. For example, this could be a high cheekbone or a lump on the face. Not clean shaven, the mask is broken for some reason, the mask is wet or contaminated, the mask has poor quality, and its filtration is not as good as it is claimed. So the first two suggestions to ensure good protection are, firstly, hospitals need to establish training program for all healthcare workers to correctly select and use proper masks. For example, when to use surgical masks or when to use N95 masks, how to wear them properly. Secondly, if you use N95 or better grade masks, make sure to conduct fit testing to ensure the factors that may compromise protection are discovered and mitigated. For example, the test can show you which mask type and which brand work and does not work for you, and will also give you a good idea about how to wear it properly to get a good protection. Then after this, if you want to still have a better protection than paper mask, you can consider to use an elastomeric face mask, or called APR, because the elastic cushion of the mask tend to give you a better seal than the paper mask does. And for even better protection, you can consider to use a power respirator, or PAPR, because the positive pressure in the respirator can give you a better protection and comfort. Having said that, both APR and PAPR require effective cleaning and sterilization procedures to be reusable. And these procedures need to be established and trained before using these respirators. Now I give you two quick examples for fit testing. One is using a qualitative test kit from 3M, and during the test, you wear the mask, you try to test for fitting. There's a bottle of chemical with a bitter taste, which will be sprayed around you. If you can't taste any bitterness, it means you have a good fit with the mask. And if you can, then the fit is bad. The other one is a quantitative test with port count fit testing machine from TSI. During the test, again, you wear the mask, you try to test the fitting. A tube is connected between the mask and the machine will sample the air outside and inside the mask, calculating the dust concentration ratio between them. At the end of the test, it will generate a fitting factor for you with the mask and the test to show you how well the fit is or how well the protection is. So now I hope you get some idea about how to make a given mask as effective as it should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
While we receive a lot of questions on this face mask, people actually ask questions like how the charge can stay in with the face mask, and what's the life that can be reusable. And some of the questions are pretty much directly related to electric state charge. And we are very glad to have Dr. Peter Chai on live right now, and he will guide us through the basic of electric technologies with meltbloom nonwovens and some of the interesting data with us. So Peter, I turn the microphone to you.
Thank you for the introduction. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm going to talk about the electric. You know, there are a variety of face masks. Medical face mask and N95 respirators are the two most commonly used face masks for protection against the bacteria and the viruses. The filtered layer in either one is a charged membrane polypropylene fabric. Usually, medical face mask is composed of one ply of the filtered media and the two plies for N95. The charged media is called electrode. They are made from the electrostatic charging of the material. Three basic ways to do the charging. That is corona charging, triple electrification, and the polarization. Electrode for masks is made by corona charging. Next, please. The charge is on the surface of the material. For example, on clothing we encounter in our daily life are surface charges. These surface charges will dissipate in the air by the naturally ionized air and by the impurities in water. But the charges in the corona charged fabric will not dissipate in the air or in water because they are embedded deep inside the fibers, and the PP material is hydrophobic. The charges are not affected by the humidity in the air. Next, please. Next slide, please. The electrode. Sorry, back. The electrode will have a quiescent charge decay in self-storage due to the heat capacity in the air. The higher the temperature, the faster the decay rate. It will have the charge decay by particle loading. The decay rate depends on the particle types. The decay rate is slow by solid particles, for example, by sodium chloride. And it is also slow by liquid particles, such as water droplets. But in terms of oily particles, the decay rate is very fast by DOP, that is dioctophthalate. Because DOP is a plasticizer, but the decay rate is not that fast by polyolefin particles. Alcohol will erase the charges because alcohol weighs out the PP material due to its lower surface tension than PP. Therefore, alcohol needs to be avoided to sterilize the electrodes. Next, please. This slide illustrates that the efficiency is increased by 10-fold after corona charging. The efficiency is increased from 37% to 99% for N95, and from 16% to 82% for medical face masks. This slide also indicates that the charge decay of N95 is about 0.5% for N95 and 3% for face masks after the heat treatment at 70 degrees C for 24 hours. This heat treatment corresponds to the quiescent self-storage charge decay for 5 years at room temperature. These 5 years for at room temperature is the guaranteed temperature and the storage time for face masks, including medical face masks and N95. So charge will decay in the air, but very slow. And the charges can be very fast by oily particles. But charges will not be erased by humidity or water. So that is the efficiency of the electrode and the characteristics of its charge decay. Thank you. That's concluded my talk.
Thank you. So we're back to our panel discussion now, and you see the individuals will be participating. Could we go to the next slide? So we received a number of questions and will not be able to go through. Obviously, we'd spend 2 hours going through all of the questions we received. You could tell by the content of the questions here. So see here that the individuals asking the questions are in many cases somewhat experts themselves. We've got some obviously from healthcare workers, from manufacturers, but we appreciate the input here, and we'll try to get back to these questions if we do not address them today. So if we go to the next slide. We also ask that you take time to fill out the evaluation form that we will send you, and note whether future discussions or possibly an open forum might be advisable. So we've selected 8 questions. These were selected by the panel. We'll review these. First question is, according to Dr. Tan's research, the actual filtration efficiency when people wear is much lower than reported. What is your suggestion for the doctors who directly deal with COVID-19 patients or people in a highly infected area? And Eric, I'm going to call on you. Ask if you'll address that, please.
Yes, so this is the question I just answered actually in my talk just now. So let me just go direct to the second question. Right.
Let's go to the second question. How long can I use my face mask? Can I reuse it?
Yeah. So normally this is they're all disposable masks. They're only good for a few hours or between patients. If you're working with different patients, you have to change your mask. If you use a surgical mask, probably just a few hours. But if it's an N95 mask, it can last a little bit longer, but typically probably wouldn't last longer a day. It also depends on your environment, or if you're working with paired patients, you still have to change for different patients.
Thank you. Any other comments to that?
So here the question is, Eric, probably you can help us address that. Can I reuse it?
Normally, no, because this called disposable mask, not mean to be reused. However, in a pandemic like what we have now, if there's a mask shortage, which it is, you can erase in a certain degree. So for instance, if you're not using all the time or just occasionally, and it's not damaged or contaminated, you can use it. But now you should limit it to not for 2 or 3 days. For N95, normally if you're using 2 days, it can still maintain 95% efficiency, but longer than that, it's no guarantee. So it's up to your judgment of how it is used.
Thank you. Any other comments? Let's go to question 3. Does the charged polypropylene decay or lose the charge? What is normal shelf life for the melt-blown polypropylene charged media? And Peter, I'm going to call on you for that one. Is Peter online? Christine.
Peter seems talking, but we can't hear him.
Okay, now it's okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Very clear.
Okay, the shelf lifetime of N95 is usually guaranteed for 5 years. So there is a charge decay, but charge decay in the natural environment is very slow. In terms of the charge decay by particle loading, particles like DOP, the charge decay by DOP loading is very fast. So it cannot be used, the respirator cannot be used very long. But loading by sodium chloride, the decay is very slow. Even the efficiency is increased by the caking of the sodium chloride on the surface of the media. In terms of the protection against the viruses, the problem is not because of the charge decay or the increase of the breathing resistance. The problem is if it is contaminated by the virus, can we use it again? There are many ways you can sterilize the respirator. For example, by alcohol. But alcohol cannot be used to sterilize N95 or face masks because the filtering piece is electrostatic charges. The charges will be erased by alcohol. But if you put the respirator in the oven, but you should not contact the respirator with the metal. You need to suspend the respirator in the air in the oven at 70 degrees for 30 minutes. Then the charge decay is very, very low. And in this case, according to a report, it can kill COVID-19 virus. So in this situation, there is a big shortage of the masks. The face masks. So if you want to reuse it, you can sterilize using heat. The heat is 70 degrees for 30 minutes. Then this condition can sterilize COVID-19, then you can reuse it. Okay, but when you take off your face masks, you need to wash your hands because your hands may be already contaminated. So you got infected not because of the reuse of the respirator, because your hands are contaminated. And you touch your hands to your nose, so you got infected, okay? So it can be reused and the storage time is very high. Okay, so, some liquid like alcohol cannot be used to sterilize the mask. So that's my answer.
Thank you, Dr. Todd. That brings us to our fourth question. I cannot find N95 masks in the store, but there are R95, P95 available. Can I buy them instead? I think they're asking, would these be sufficient? Christine, do you want to tackle that?
Yes, actually, this is actually related to NIOSH certification. And there are 3 levels of the filtration efficiencies, as I mentioned earlier, 95%, and 99%, and 99.97%. And the 3 categories of resistance of filter efficiency degradation are labeled as N, R, and P. N for non-resistant to oil. That's normally where it says N95. R means resistant to oil. P means oil proof. So regardless of this kind of situation, they have the efficiency as certified. So yes, you can use R95 or P95 instead if you cannot find N95 face mask in the store.
Thank you. Any other comments? It takes us to the 5th question. Can I use alcohol or detergents to sterilize my face mask?
I think this question already answered by Peter just now.
Any other comments?
We should not use alcohol or any kind of solvent to sterilize your face mask.
And number 6, what electrical charge do viruses have? Does Tentret electrical charging of melt-blown face mask media work?
Yes. It does not matter the virus carry charges or not, because electrode is a bipolar material. So it can attract the particle by Coulombic force if the particle carry charges. If the particles are neutral, they do not carry the charges, then electrode will polarize the particle. Then the electrode can attract the particle by image force. So electrode can work for both a charged particle or non-charged particles. So it works for virus and bacteria.
Very good. Question number 7, a very popular question. Is there a mask which will give me 100% protection? And that's on a lot of people's minds. Anyone can go for this one.
Professor Tan?
Okay, I can. I don't think any mask will give you 100% of protection. From the test I presented, even the N95 cannot give you 100% protection. By N95, it means 95% anyway. So there's always a penetration and sometimes leaking from the edge. Just be careful. If you are concerned with the virus, wash your hands frequently and drink more water to build up your immune system. That's it.
Very good. Thank
you. Just to add to that, I think we should always use the common sense. You know, a lot of times, you know, oh yes, I have the mask, but if you mishandle it, just as Peter pointed out, if you touch the mask on the side, it is contaminated, and then you again, you know, touch your mouth, nose, or eye, you're not doing any good. So in all these cases, the common sense should prevail, and don't, you know, trust just because you have the mask, I have the protection. And also, you cannot wear the mask too long afterwards. The breathability issue comes into picture also, and one has to take that into consideration as well. So.
Thank you, Dr. Bott. Anyone else? That brings us to the last question, another popular question, on a lot of people's minds, but what is the current balance between supply and demand?
This is a question actually we receive a lot nowadays due to very high demand on face masks. In other words, there is a shortage of face masks on the marketplace in China and some other effective area. So it's a big question question, but we answer that quickly is there is a huge demand right now for meltblown polypropylene electric media. And also keep that in mind. Meltblown electric media is not the only solution. You can see a lot of players right now, they can use new technology, nanofibers, because it basically can provide also the high efficiency, and all those efficiency is primarily based on mechanical filtration efficiency.
Thank you, Christine. And Mr. Fu, you may be able to add to it. I know that the brush fires in Australia have also increased demand significantly for face masks.
Oh, yes. And it is out of stock now also in Australia. Yes, the mask, protection mask is always in shortage in this kind of pandemic events. So my thinking is we can increase the production capability for this, but I think there should be a way to complement this disposable mask. For instance, as I said in the talk, we should encourage people to using reusable masks like APR and PAPR. So because they're reusable, you don't have to throw away every day for every use, and you can clean and sterilize that. And this is very green and sustainable. So my thinking is in the future, that may be a trend for people to produce reusable respirators or masks.
Thank you. And with that, to thank everybody for the questions. Go ahead.
The production of medical face mask is about 20 million pieces a day before COVID-19. But there is increase of production during this time. So it increased by about 1 million, 10 million pieces a day now. So the production rate now for surgical face mask is about 30 million pieces a day, okay? But they are 1.4 billion people in China. So you know the difference between the demand and the supply.
Right. Good numbers.
Okay.
And with that, I see we've got a lot of other questions that people are responding to, asking. We will try to get back by email and get an answer to you as an individual. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christine to close.
Well, thank you, Tom. And for the use of the masks, we highly recommend you to refer to WHO advice on the use of masks in such a situation, at the current situation of this. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all our expert panelists. Thanks for their time, their contribution. And also, thanks John Du and Dr. Lee, 2% behind to make this program possible. Thanks for their efforts and hard work. For new developments and trends in filtration, we highly recommend you that join us with WFI 2020 annual conference. That will be July 29th to 31st, Waterloo, Canada. And we will launch the program Filtration and Specialist Certification Program that will be further develop your career in the area of filtration and separation. And we would also like to thanks to our members listed on this slide. Without their support, we weren't able to make this program. Thanks for their support. And most of all, we thank you for our attendants from different side of the world to join this seminar. We thank you for your participation. We thank you for your question. We will keep it in touch. If you have any questions, feel free to send us email, or you can check our website. You can find all the information. Thanks again. This would conclude this seminar.